Two people lose everything in a single moment. One collapses in despair, the other begins again with peace. What makes the difference? The Buddha said, the mind is everything. If that's true, then maybe suffering isn't outside us, but inside the way we think. This truth reveals something powerful. Suffering does not come from the storm outside, but from the storm inside. Life itself is neutral. It is the mind that paints it with color, sometimes with peace, sometimes with pain. Think about this. When rain suddenly falls, one person curses the sky, angry that their day is ruined. Another simply lifts their face, feeling the cool drops, grateful for the reminder that life is alive around them. The same rain, but two completely different worlds. Modern psychology now echoes this wisdom. Studies show that what truly shapes our happiness is not the event itself, but the meaning we give to it. Our thoughts can become prisons, or they can open doors to freedom. And Buddhism has taught this for over 2,500 years. In today's journey, we'll uncover 3 hidden roots of why the mind creates suffering. But more importantly, we'll explore how to free ourselves, how to return to a place of clarity, balance, and peace that no storm can shake. So I invite you, as you listen, gently ask yourself, is my suffering coming from life or from my own mind story about it? That simple awareness might be the first step to transforming not just your pain, but your entire way of living. As we continue this journey together, we will arrive at the first essential insight in today's video, the chains of attachment. Though the word is different, the heart of the lesson remains the same. Attachment is one of the deepest roots of suffering. Think for a moment about how we hold on to the things we love. We cling to people, to possessions, to identities, even to emotions. And in our grasping, we begin to believe that without them, we cannot be whole. Yet the Buddha reminded us with timeless clarity, all things are impermanent, nothing lasts forever. This truth may sound simple, but when you let it sink in, it transforms how you see life. Every relationship, every success, every moment of joy is like a flower. It blooms, radiant and full of fragrance. But no flower stays forever. When we try to freeze the moment, to clutch the petals so they never fall, we destroy the very beauty we long to preserve. Let's imagine an example. A person builds their entire sense of happiness on one relationship. They say, without this person, I cannot live. Without them, my life has no meaning. As long as the relationship stays, they are content. But when it changes, as all things inevitably do, their world collapses. Their happiness was never truly within them. It was borrowed, fragile, tied to something outside their control. This is the hidden cost of attachment. But here is the important distinction. Letting go of attachment does not mean stopping love. It does not mean indifference or cold detachment. On the contrary, it means loving more fully, without chains, without fear. Imagine holding a bird in your hands. If you clutch it too tightly, you hurt it. If you let it fly freely, you can admire its beauty in the sky. Love is the same. When it is free, it grows. When it is chained, it suffocates. To practice this, the path is not about rejecting what we care for. It is about shifting how we relate to it. When you wake up in the morning, cherish the presence of your loved ones, but remind yourself gently, this too is impermanent. That awareness does not make you love less. It makes you love more, because you no longer take it for granted. Every moment becomes precious, a gift to be savored rather than possessed. The Buddha often taught that clinging is like holding a burning coal. We grasp it, hoping to use it against the world, but in the end, it is our own hand that gets burned. When we release it, we free not only the coal, but also ourselves. So how do we begin? Start with small practices of letting go. Release the need for constant validation from others. Notice when your mind says, I can only be happy if, and gently challenge that belief. Replace it with, I can be happy because I am alive, because I breathe, because this moment exists. This shift of awareness is powerful. It turns dependency into inner strength. And in living this way, something beautiful happens. Fear of the future softens. When we know that all things are changing, we stop holding tomorrow as a threat. We realize that the only true place of peace is here and now. The present is no longer a stepping stone toward a better future. It is already complete. Attachment tells us, I will be happy when freedom whispers, I can be happy now. That is the invitation of this teaching, to loosen the chains, to embrace life without clinging, and to discover a joy that is untouchable because it comes from within. We've just explored how attachment silently binds us in suffering, but attachment is not the only chain. There is another hidden force in the mind, equally powerful, equally subtle, that deepens our pain: resistance. And so in the next part of today's journey, we will uncover the weight of resistance. Resistance is what happens when the mind argues with reality. It whispers, this shouldn't have happened. Things must be different. Life must obey my wishes. And in that moment, a war begins, not with the world, but within ourselves. The Buddha taught that reality does not bend to our demands. The rain falls whether we welcome it or not. People come and go regardless of our preferences. Circumstances change with no concern for our comfort. When we resist, we are like a person standing in the ocean, shouting at the waves to stop. The harder we push, the more exhausted we become. Think of two people who lose everything in a financial collapse. One collapses with it, drowning in despair, repeating, this should not have happened. My life is ruined. The other, though equally shocked, breathes deeply and whispers, it has happened. Now what can I do with what remains? Both lost their fortune, but only one lost their spirit. The difference is not in the event, it is in the response. Acceptance, however, does not mean resignation. It does not mean saying, I will never try again. True acceptance is the courage to face reality as it is, not as we demand it to be. It is seeing clearly, without denial, and then responding with wisdom instead of fear. Acceptance transforms suffering into strength. There is an old Zen saying, let go or be dragged. When we resist, life drags us through pain, because reality does not stop for our protests. But when we let go, not of action, but of the illusion of control, we discover a peace that cannot be taken away. How can we practice this? Begin with mindfulness in the small, ordinary frustrations of life. When you're stuck in traffic and your mind screams, this shouldn't happen, I'll be late. Notice the resistance. Breathe. Accept the moment. I am here, in this car, at this red light. This is reality. From that acceptance, your choices become clearer. Perhaps you use the time to breathe, to reflect, to listen to something nourishing. The traffic doesn't change, but your experience does. Or imagine a painful breakup. The mind resists. They should still be here. This shouldn't have ended. Resistance makes the wound bleed endlessly. But acceptance, while difficult, whispers, it has ended. My heart hurts, but life continues. I can grow from this. Acceptance is not weakness. It is the foundation of healing. The key lies in presence. When you are fully present with what is, the mind has less room to fight with reality. Mindfulness is the bridge that brings you back to now. It is here, in the simplicity of breathing, that resistance begins to loosen. So remember, suffering is not only about what happens to us, but how we resist what happens. Resistance adds weight to the burden, while acceptance lifts it. When we stop fighting with reality, reality stops being our enemy. And that is the weight of resistance, the second hidden source of suffering and also the doorway to freedom. In the last part, we discovered how resistance against reality creates a weight we carry unnecessarily. The moment we stop fighting life, suffering begins to loosen its grip. But the mind has yet another trick, one just as subtle and dangerous: the constant habit of measuring ourselves against others. And so, we will now move to the next part of today's journey, the trap of comparison. Comparison is like a silent poison in the mind. It creeps in quietly, often unnoticed, and whispers, they are happier than you. They are more successful. They are more beautiful, smarter, richer. And without realizing it, we trade our own peace for envy, insecurity, or pride. The Buddha reminded us that suffering does not arise from what others have, but from how we view ourselves in relation to them. The problem isn't that someone else shines, it's that we forget we too have our own unique light. When the mind compares, it leaves us blind to our own worth. Imagine someone deeply content with their job. Each morning they wake with purpose, finding meaning in their daily work. But then scrolling through social media, They see friends announcing promotions, luxurious vacations, or glittering achievements. Suddenly, the heart shifts. What was once fulfilling now feels inadequate. Nothing has changed in their life. Only the lens of comparison has poisoned their peace. Comparison is a trap because it is built on illusion. It assumes that life is a race, that value is measured by numbers, likes, wealth, or titles. But in truth, each life is its own path. No two rivers flow the same way, yet all reach the ocean. In the same way, no two souls are meant to look identical. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us, happiness does not come from winning against others. It comes from knowing when to stop running. True peace is born from sufficiency, from looking inward and realizing, I already have enough. I already am enough. But how do we free ourselves from this trap? The key is mindfulness and gratitude. When the mind begins to compare, pause, breathe, return to the present. Instead of asking, why don't I have what they have? Ask, what blessings already live in my life right now? Gratitude shifts the focus from scarcity to abundance. Another practice is self-compassion. When you feel inferior, instead of attacking yourself, place a hand on your heart and say, I am doing my best. My path is mine alone, and that is enough. And when you feel superior, remember humility. Everyone struggles in ways unseen. Comparison feeds ego on both sides, either through envy or arrogance. Compassion dissolves both. There is also wisdom in remembering impermanence. Today's success may fade tomorrow. Today's failure may be the seed of tomorrow's growth. To compare is to cling to snapshots of a moving story, forgetting that life is always changing. Let's return to the image of rivers. Imagine comparing a mountain stream to a wide delta river. Each serves its purpose. Each carries water to the ocean, though the paths look different. Human lives are the same. Your journey is not theirs and theirs is not yours. When you stop comparing, you begin to see every path has dignity. So remember, comparison is a thief of joy, but it is also an illusion. It does not reveal the truth of life, only the distortions of the restless mind. When you let go of the need to measure, you return to your own center. And in that space, peace is not something to chase, it is something you already carry within. This is the trap of comparison, the third hidden root of suffering, and also the reminder that your worth was never meant to be borrowed from others. If comparison blinds us to our own worth, then the illusion of self blinds us to the truth of existence itself. And so, we will now move to the next part of today's journey, the illusion of self. The illusion of self is one of the greatest sources of suffering. From birth, we are given names, roles, titles, and identities. Slowly, we begin to believe, this is who I am. Our achievements, our failures, the opinions of others, they all weave together to form what we call me. Enam. But what happens when this image of me is shaken? When someone criticizes us, when we fail at something, or when we lose what defined us? The mind reacts fiercely, as if the very foundation of existence has been attacked. This is where deep suffering arises. The Buddha taught that the self is not a solid, permanent entity. What we call I is simply a collection of body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, constantly changing, never fixed. Just like a flame that depends on fuel to exist, the self depends on conditions and is never truly separate or independent. Imagine carrying around a mask for so long that you forget it is only a mask. You begin to think the mask is your real face. But one day someone takes it off and suddenly you feel naked, exposed, lost. That is what happens when we over-identify with our self-image. Life will inevitably pull away the masks, through aging, through loss, through change. If we cling too tightly, every shift becomes unbearable. But when we begin to see the self as an illusion, something extraordinary happens. We feel lighter. Criticism no longer cuts so deep because we realize it is not striking at some permanent me. Praise does not intoxicate us because we see it too as passing. Success and failure lose their grip. We can participate in life fully without being enslaved by the labels attached to us. The practice begins with mindful observation. Instead of saying, I am suffering, we learn to shift our awareness. There is suffering. Instead of, I am angry, we can note, anger is present. This small change creates distance. It helps us recognize that emotions and thoughts arise, but they are not the whole of who we are. Like clouds drifting across the sky, they pass, while the sky itself, the deeper awareness, remains untouched. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Many therapies teach the importance of observing thoughts instead of identifying with them. The ancient Buddhist practice of non-self is not about denying existence. It is about loosening the chains of ego so that we no longer collapse under every wound to our identity. Think about the freedom of not needing to defend a fragile self-image every moment. When you no longer cling to being seen as perfect, failure becomes a teacher. When you are not desperate to protect pride, criticism becomes feedback instead of a dagger. When you no longer chase validation, you begin to live from authenticity. The Buddhist teaching of non-self is not meant to strip life of meaning, but to free us from unnecessary suffering. By realizing that I is not a fixed object, we open to the flow of change. Life becomes more flexible, less heavy. We stop drowning in labels and instead discover a vast inner space where peace resides. This is the illusion of self, a mirror showing us that what we defend so fiercely is never as solid as we believe. And once we see through the illusion, what remains is freedom, the freedom to live without fear of loss, without the burden of protecting an image, and with the quiet joy of simply being. We've just uncovered how the illusion of self can trap us in endless cycles of pain, binding our identity to praise or criticism, gain or loss. But the story of suffering doesn't end there, because even beyond the self, there is something deeper that shapes how we experience life. Perception shapes reality. Peace or pain begins in the mind. There is a Buddhist story that captures this truth beautifully. A weary traveler and a monk are caught in a heavy storm. The traveler shouts in frustration, "This storm is ruining everything." The monk, sitting peacefully under the rain, replies, "The storm exists only in your mind. The rain is just rain." This story is not about the weather. It is about perception. Events in life are neutral. They carry no inherent meaning until the mind steps in to label them as good or bad, fortunate or unfortunate. The suffering does not come from the event itself, but from the interpretation we attach to it. Think about your own life. How many times have you said to yourself, "This should not be happening"? That simple thought can transform a small inconvenience into a mountain of frustration. The truth is, life is never in conflict with us. It simply unfolds. But our mind, with its judgments and expectations, resists reality. And from that resistance, suffering grows. When we shift our perception, everything changes. What once felt like an obstacle can become an opportunity for growth. Losing a job may feel like devastation, but it can also open the door to a path more aligned with your heart. A relationship ending can break you down, or it can teach you about strength, freedom, and love without attachment. Buddhist wisdom reminds us, it is not what happens to us, but how we see it that shapes our peace. This is the heart of mindful perception. Instead of rushing to label every event as good or bad, we learn to pause, to breathe, and to witness things as they are. The rain is just rain. Silence is just silence. Failure is just an event, not the end of who you are. In that shift, suffering dissolves. So as we come to the final part of today's journey, let this truth stay with you. The mind has the power to create storms, but it also holds the power to clear the skies. When you meet life with awareness and openness, even the heaviest rains can become a song of peace. Life will always bring storms, endings, and changes. Yet suffering is never born from life itself. It is born from the way our mind receives it. When our perception distorts reality, pain arises. When we cling too tightly, suffering deepens. When we resist what already is, suffering lingers. And when we compare or protect the fragile illusion of self, peace drifts further away. But here lies the hidden gift. The same mind that creates suffering also holds the seed of liberation. The Buddha reminds us, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. In every moment, no matter how chaotic, there is a choice. We can fight against life and sink deeper into the storm, or we can soften, breathe, and recognize that the storm only exists in our mind. The rain is just rain. Take a pause right now. Ask yourself gently, Is this the situation, or is this my mind's reaction? That simple awareness is the first step toward true freedom. It is the doorway to a life no longer ruled by fear, comparison, or attachment, but rooted in clarity and compassion. Remember this: the world outside may never stop changing, but the way you meet it can. And when your mind is steady, even the fiercest storm becomes a teacher, not a tormentor. This is the essence of Zen: not escaping life, but meeting life fully, with a heart that no longer resists. If this teaching touches something deep within you, let it stay alive. Share in the comments one thing you are ready to release today: a thought, a fear, or a comparison that no longer serves you. Let your words be your first act of freedom. And if you want to keep walking this path of mindfulness and inner peace, subscribe now. In the next videos, we'll continue exploring how Zen wisdom can free you from the hidden traps of the mind and lead you home to yourself.